So anyway, thanks everyone for being here this morning. Apologies, I'm constantly out of breath because I'm 21 weeks pregnant and throwing a human is really hard. So I feel like I'm constantly like taking a deep breath. So welcome to Creative Mornings. We like to start out all of these events every month with an icebreaker, and so this month our icebreaker involves our theme of movement. So I'd love for anyone just to tell us about an activity. It doesn't have to be like spring or summer, although I feel like we do a lot more movement in spring and summer. So if you wouldn't mind telling us about an activity that you enjoy that involves our monthly theme of movement.
I played pickleball this morning. That was fun.
Already?
Yeah. I'm an early riser.
What am I doing with my life? You've already played a full game of pickleball. Sheesh.
I mean, I moved out of my bed.
Favorite activity.
Angela, that's a start.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
start.
And I thought about playing pickleball.
Like I used my brain and I thought about it. I will say mine is riding my bike on the trail in the summer. I'm not from here. I moved here about 7 years ago and bought a bike when I moved here because everyone had a bike. And then I got a dog a few years later, and now it's hard to like take a dog to the trail and a bike, so I don't take it as much. But I do love riding my bike on the trail around here. It's my favorite kind of spring summer activity. Yeah.
When it's nice outside, I like to go to Stevens Lake Park,
Mm-hmm.
and I listen to like my favorite podcasts.
Yeah. My golden retriever loves Stevens Lake Park, so we frequent that one pretty much every Saturday. Anyone else want to share?
We're big fans of biking up to Merriweather in Rocheport on the trail. We typically do it on Friday mornings
Yeah.
when it's warmer weather.
That's a nice ride too because that part of Rocheport is all covered and you're on the river. It's really nice.
I'd say it's one of the prettiest.
I think so.
section.
I've done the peddler's jam before, and that's my favorite stretch. Because once you get past there, there's no shade for like 20 miles.
Yeah, once you leave Rocheport to Boonville, it's like.
Yeah, it's hot.
Right.
What about you?
I like to do hot yoga, so which is not very popular right now when it's like hot outside. But
I like the idea of hot
yeah,
yoga.
it's intense. It's like it was not something I ever thought I would like, and then I got addicted to it. Yeah, it was like
I like to sweat, so you think I would. I think it's mostly because I'm not good at yoga. But most yogis are like, no one's good at yoga.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but have you seen me do yoga? Because it's really bad. A friend of mine, Amber Treese, owns Moon Yoga, and every time I take a class, she's like, you're improving one day at a time.
because you're not in pain.
Well, I just can't speak to that. Anyone else want to share? No more. Hermans, none of you have any activities?
Plenty of movement things.
It's like you all do tons of activities as a family.
Motorcycle, jet ski, playing, any kind of movement, great.
Yeah.
I like to be at the trails out at Rockbridge and
Yeah, it's
hiking and
nice out
running.
there. Michaela, what were you gonna say?
I like taking our dog hiking. He is always like so excited.
I know. We take our dog, like she's great off leash, so we just like let her roam and smell all the smells. And yeah, go ahead, Barbie.
I like taking dance classes. If
Ooh.
you've never taken a dance class at Dance Arts for adults, you should, because they make everybody feel like you're the best dancer in the world.
What types of dances?
I do tap, that's my favorite. But they do all things at Dance Arts. Ballet, jazz.
Yeah. Does anybody remember the time, maybe this was like early 2000s, the early aughts of like when swing dancing was a thing and everyone was taking swing dance lessons? Guilty of that. And not being good at it. But well, thanks everyone for sharing your favorite activities. So if you're not already following us on just social channels, it's the best way to find out when our events are, who our speakers are, what the themes are, where we meet in the same space the third Friday of every month. So if you're interested in coming back, this is where you can find us. If you don't know, Creative Mornings is a global organization, so we have chapters all over the world. There are about 250 chapters across the continents. MailChimp is our global sponsor, so we don't get paid to host these events. They basically provide us with all the assets that we would need and help us put these events on, but we don't make any money doing it. They kind of foot the bill in terms of creative assets, and this space was donated to us, all of our volunteers, are unpaid. So thanks to MailChimp for allowing us to have these events. They also release a new report every month, and so this one is 5 growth marketing tips for agencies and freelancers. I am a marketer and a salesperson, and so a lot of these reports, if you're interested in marketing your own business or you're just interested in learning a little bit more about the agency and kind of freelance world, you can find these on MailChimp's website for free. Also, if you have never been here before, thanks for being here for your first time. My encouragement is always just to bring a friend and then make a friend while you're here. I've met a ton of really interesting people at these events, and it's always a really good experience. I've never left thinking I'm really mad that I went to that. So I'm really hopeful that if you like us today, that you come back next month and that you also bring a friend. Oh, one more thing. On the back corner back here, we have our collaboration station. So if you are looking for a job or you're hiring or you just want to collaborate with someone on a project, you can put your name and your information and what you're looking for on a post-it back there. And then someone, if they're interested, can at least take a photo of it and then contact you. So it's the best way to help people interact, especially if you're a little more of an introvert and don't want to walk up to someone that you don't know. That said, I mentioned that we've got chapters all over the place. They happen every Friday of every month. Everyone kind of picks their own Friday. We happen to pick the 3rd Friday, but it's always cool to know that chapters all over the world are meeting at this exact same time. We also have field trips. So a lot of Creative Mornings chapters do virtual field trips, so that is going into someone's art space or someone teaching you a new skill. All these are always free, just like our events will always be free and accessible to everyone. So if you're interested, they release a new set of field trips every single month, and they're all really cool. I took a watercolor class, which was really interesting, and you have time for Q&A, and you can interact with the host, which is really interesting in my mind. So if you're interested in learning more about any particular subject, they have thousands of field trips that have been posted if you want to check out a former one or if you want to attend one that's coming up soon. And then, would you like to volunteer? So we have a very small but mighty volunteer team that helps us put on these events. It's helping to maintain our website, helping with social media, helping bring donuts, setting up on these mornings. And so it requires about, maybe 2 to 4 hours of your month. But if you're interested in volunteering, just email us and let us know. I would love to connect with you and figure out how we can put you on the team. I obviously will be stepping out of this role, at least temporarily, come late summer. So we're definitely going to need some extra help. So if you're interested at all, we would love to have you. Just let us know. All right. Before we introduce our speaker, every month we always read our Creative Mornings Manifesto. This is just a part of all of the chapters to make sure that everyone knows why we're here and that everyone is welcome to be here. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind reading this for us, and then we'll introduce our speaker. We'll go from there. Do you need the microphone?
No.
Okay.
So, today's theme is movement. So I plan on doing a little interpretation as I read the manifesto. Highly encourage anybody that's interested in participating to join as well. So
So you should make everyone stand up.
that's kind of what I was getting at. Anyone be talking about it? Talking about this movement, it's good, right?
Stretch it out.
Yeah. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty, hard work. I'm winging this. We are here to support you, to celebrate you, and encourage you to make the things you love. No one's moving, but that's okay. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in hugs. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone.
This month's theme is movement, illustrated by Michaela. So each month, one of our chapters selects the illustration, and a local artist submits art for that. I think our turn is coming up soon, but with our theme of movement, I know actually, hey Sarah, welcome. Our theme of movement, I know, so Sarah, who just walked in, is a big part of our school. She is the only person who handles like our speaker engagement and is always looking for new folks to speak at these events, and I think Michaela was a natural fit given the organization she's works for, her extracurricular hobbies and activities. And we've known Michaela for quite a while, so we're excited to have her here this morning. Michaela, if you want to come up, I'll get your slide set up, and then we can dive into the theme of movement. So come up, Michaela. Okay, Mike is going to be an experience.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Michaela. I work at Local Motion in town. I'm their development director, but I've also been in Columbia almost 11 years now, which is kind of wild. I am originally from Colorado, grew up in Idaho, ended up in Missouri as a J schooler, and then didn't get the degree, got an English degree instead. So, yeah, happy to be in Missouri. My partner owns a bike shop here, so we will definitely be here for a while. But kind of a roundabout journey to get here. So, Mike kind of already took my intro, but we're going to stand up.
Yeah!
So, I'm not going to use the mic for this. Okay, go ahead. Raise your arms. Yeah. Yes. Big stretch, reach up to the sky. Exhale, bring your arms down. Okay, one more time. Inhale. Arms up. Reach the fingertips super high. Maybe take a lean to the right. Inhale, lean to the left. Oh, there she is. Back through the middle. Okay, exhale the arms down. You just give a little side to side shake. You can let your arms be heavy. I always had a teacher call this empty coat sleeves, like when yeah, the little kids. You know what it is. Perfect. Okay, just come back to the middle. One more deep breath. Exhale. Okay, you can sit down. So, I also am a yoga teacher in a previous life. I haven't taught recently, but I did do a whole training. So sometimes I do yoga. So, movement. Why do we move? I think this topic got me thinking a lot about my relationship with movement, the different ways that I have moved over my life. And that has looked very different over time. So as a kid, my parents were very big on sports. So they did lots of sports, lots of sporting activities. Didn't always like them, but was very happy to be around friends and be outside and play, and that was great. And then as I got older and maybe into high school, I started realizing I actually kind of like this whole moving thing. I started running and I started biking and just enjoying the feeling of moving my body. And then I realized that it actually can make me feel better. So I remember being in high school and being pissed off at my parents and going for a run and being oh, I feel less bad now. I feel better. And that has definitely continued. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know, exercise and dopamine are pretty tied together. So there's a very real reason why you sometimes feel better after you do movement. But then I also started moving as punishment, and I wouldn't like my body and I would move more, or I wouldn't feel comfortable in my skin and I would move more. And that continued for a long time. And I would just move to feel more in control or feel more secure in my surroundings, and not because it was like fun. But certainly movement is still fun. But for a while it kind of started changing for me and becoming less fun and becoming more of a thing that I just felt like I had to do. So in 2016, I started doing a lot more yoga, and that's when I kind of started my yoga teacher training and did that certification, which is a lot of yoga. a lot of yoga. It's over 200 hours. Our training was spread out over the course of like 8 months. So I was finishing up school, and then basically all my free time I was doing yoga. And it was awesome because I started feeling like being in my body wasn't as bad, and that it was like okay and a little bit safer and a little bit more comfortable, but not super comfy, but more comfortable. And that was new, definitely new. So I started doing more yoga, and then I also started biking more. Graduated, met my partner. He owns a bike shop, so it's a little bit, it's not required, it's just encouraged. And I started biking more, and I really loved it because also movement for me is like very tied with nature, and I've learned that I really love moving when I can be outside, and that experience really makes it feel better for me. So I started biking more, and I was really curious about this whole biking thing, and a lot of cyclists around me were doing these longer events and like being a little bit more competitive about it, and that wasn't something that I was super drawn to. But I was like, why not? Let's give it a try. So at the end of 2019, I signed up for this race that at the time was called Dirty Kansas, now it's called Unbound. It's this huge gravel race in Kansas, believe it or not. It's wildly hilly, like legitimately never again will I say Kansas is flat, ever. ever. And I was only going to do the 100-mile version of it. The like OG version is 200 miles, which is a whole other thing. But I was like, 100 is enough. Like that's hard, but like I can conceptualize 100 miles and like be on a bike for 100 miles. So I started training and, doing really structured rides and like riding longer. And I remember doing my first 50-mile ride and being like, oh my gosh, like I just rode 50 miles on a bike. Like this is wild. And it didn't take me all day too. Like I'm home and can eat dinner. And then COVID happened. In March of 2020, I started working from home, which was like my dream life. I ended up really helping with the bike training because like suddenly, no one's hanging out, no one's doing anything. So I was like, great, I'm gonna go ride my bike. And it was awesome. Like the first 2 months of COVID lockdown for me were like peak living. It's like I'm an introvert, I don't have to see anyone, I can be outside, I can ride my bike, like I'm working from home, like what else could I want? But the race changed, and so they were like, hey, it's kind of a stupid idea to have like, 5,000 people gather in a tiny town in Kansas and like do this really extreme race, like let's not do that. And so they said, okay, everyone's gonna do their own virtual race. Like you can ride where you live, or maybe go, visit a friend and ride where they live, but like we'll all race on the same day, but you're just gonna be, alone. And again, I was like, great. No people, like this is awesome. It's even better than I thought. And so I was ready. Like I had ridden 88 miles. That was the longest I had ridden. I had like food, done all my prep, I had all my gear, like all the things. I was super, super ready. Went out, got about 30 miles into my ride, and I broke my leg. Yeah, I know. Fun twist. Plot twist. Yeah, so I broke my leg. So this was May 23rd of 2020. I was almost in Centralia, just on like a gravel road. A dog T-boned me is like the best way to explain that. And I just like fell and my leg broke. And definitely like freak accident. Like please don't be afraid of biking because of this. Like I don't know anyone else that has broken their leg but being hit by a dog. So if you're a new biker, like don't worry, this is not common. So I broke my leg, and it ended up being really bad. As you can see, the break is on the left, which is like not even that good of a picture, but I broke my tib and fib and my ankle joint. There was a spiral fracture, so the bone's broken multiple places. And you know, classically, you get hurt and you're like, it's not that bad, right? So I didn't call an ambulance, I called Angela. And was like, this is fine, like, I'll just lay in the middle of the road and wait for Brian, my partner, to come pick me up. So I laid in the road for like an hour and a half, truly in the middle of nowhere because only 3 cars passed. And it took like 40 minutes for the first one. Brian arrives, you know, is like, how do I transport you? Like, what do you do with someone who can't walk? Like, I don't know. Again, should have called an ambulance. Like, bad choices, people. So lovely Brian takes me to Mizzou's ER. By now we're like 2 to 3 hours after I actually crashed, so I've just been not being my best self. But, you know, because it's COVID, he can't come with me. So he drops me at the ER, doesn't know exactly what's wrong. Like, something's definitely wrong. Like, my leg was, like, pointing in the other direction. Like, things are not good, but I don't know, like, maybe I'll be out today, maybe I'll be out tomorrow. Like, who really knows? So they wheel me into the ER, and I'm trying to explain, like, a dog hit me, and they're like, were you on the trail? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I was trying to bike 100 miles today, and they're like, oh, okay. So we did that routine kind of over and over. People were really confused about this like biking and gravel situation, and like, did I know the dog? And like, just, you know, all the things. And of course, it's only me, so I'm like, no, I didn't know the dog. No, I, you know, can't tell you much more than that. End up having surgery. I'm in the hospital for 4 days. Don't see Brian, don't see family, have surgery alone, wake up alone. It was awful. And that's like, lots of other people were in the hospital at that time too, and like living much worse lives than me, which is also wild to think about. So I ended up having an X-Fix put in, which is that big fat metal thing. It was just poking out of my leg, and they didn't really know what to do with me. They're like, this is too swollen to really put metal in you, but you are gonna need metal in you. So they sent me home with that, and Brian was like, great, what do I do with this? Like, surely I need like a handler to help you. 2 weeks later, had surgery again. They put metal in my leg this time, and I got sent home in a boot. And they're like, great, don't walk for 3 months. I was like, oh, okay. So I just went from training to ride 100 miles, and now I can't walk. That's good. And then my leg got infected. And if you really don't want to look at that, I can change the slide too. Trying to pick the less gruesome photos. But my leg got infected, so the infection started spreading up my hardware, and spreading along the screws, and so they were worried it was going to start growing into my bone. So then, like 4 months later, I had another surgery, and they took out some of my hardware. So I had 3 surgeries in 4 months. I still have some metal, but less metal. And it's totally optional. Like, I can have it out, but I don't really want to have surgery again, you know. But ended up not being able to walk for 7 months. It was January of 2021 when I got my boot off. And they're like, great, you can do PT now. And surgeons are awesome because they're really good at cutting you. And then they really don't care after that. They're like, my work is done, your bone is beautiful, and aren't I awesome? Go have fun. So he was truly, like, legitimately awesome guy. And, like, they don't give 2 shits what happens after they cut you up. So I went and did about 7 months of PT. Learned to walk again, like, legitimately couldn't walk. Had to buy, like, all new shoes, all new clothes, like, just the amount on which we rely on, like, 2 legs is, like, pretty high. So this kind of started changing things for me because I was used to being able to use my body, and I was used to being able to move for fun or move to, like, accomplish daily tasks, like, you know, take a shower, or go to the grocery store, and then I couldn't. And that made me rethink my relationship with movement. I started realizing, like, how much I had punished myself using movement and how much I really, like, hated moving, because it was just becoming this thing that was painful and not supportive. So once I started being able to, like, walk again and maybe walk a little further, and then ended up getting back on my bike 13 months after I crashed, it was a little bit different. Like, I started appreciating that I could just, like, walk around the block, or, like, go in the kitchen and make some food, or go for, like, a 5-mile bike ride, and be outside. And that was a game changer. So some of my whys definitely stayed the same. Like, I used movement as a coping mechanism in a good way, like, hey, this makes me feel better. But I also started, like, getting a lot more joy out of the experience than I had been. I'm not gonna lie, like, I still, you know, move to punish myself, and, like, that's still a thing. But I definitely move because I want to a lot more. And because it's just a really nice experience to, like, have autonomy over your body and be able to, like, go where you want to go. But in this whole process, you know, going from a very able-bodied person to someone who, like, had to be in a wheelchair and had to have other people drive me and had all these, like, accessories and canes and walkers and had a shower chair, super sexy. I started realizing, like, oh shit, like, this is what a lot of people experience. Like, this is their normal, and our world is, like, not built for that in any capacity. And I was lucky that, like, I had a partner who could, you know, drive me to all of my appointments, and had family who was able to, like, come and help me during the process. And I had a job that I could keep working from home, and so I didn't have to worry about, like, how am I going to get to work and how is this going to happen. But that's not the reality for a lot of people. So even if you are able-bodied, you still might not have, like, that access or that ability to get around the way that you want to. So a year ago, I got my job at Locomotion, and I'm the development director, and I started biking to work more, and sometimes I even walk to work, days that I am not running late. but I started learning a little bit more about, the transportation system and how we get around. And it was reminding me a lot of when I had a broken leg and couldn't get around. And I had kind of only thought about that in the context of like, oh, okay, like I wasn't able-bodied and, lots of people have to deal with that, but now I'm able-bodied again, and so it's really just only these people that are like in wheelchairs that we have to think about making the transportation system different for. Not true. I started to learn that like, actually our transportation system is basically just built for people with cars. So it doesn't matter if you actually can walk, or bike, or physically move around the world, it still isn't really built for you. So a little bit about locomotion. If you don't know, it used to be PedNet Coalition, but we are a transportation advocacy group, and so I don't do this because this isn't my job, but my coworkers are really, really great at advocating and educating people in the community about transportation issues. And a lot of that revolves around this experience that I was discovering of like, not everyone can get where they want to go. So just like I couldn't get where I wanted to go when I couldn't walk, there's also lots of people that can't get where they want to go because they don't have a car, or because they share a car with 5 people, and like how do you figure out the hierarchy of who needs a car and when and all of that. So I started to realize like, okay, there's some transportation issues. So our bus system is subpar at best. We currently have 6 routes. They're about to cut those, I think, to 3 routes within an undetermined amount of time. So if you are like me, like I knew nothing about public transit because I didn't grow up with someplace with public transit. So 3 bus routes for a city our size is like smaller than the school bus system. Like your kids have more bus options. We're gonna not allow. Your kids have more bus options than like someone who needs to go to work. Which like great, I'm glad that our kids can be bused to school, and also like it'd be great that adults could be too. So in a lot of our advocacy work, my colleagues have found this really strong correlation between our Vision Zero neighborhoods, which are neighborhoods of folks that are predominantly people of color, predominantly low income, and might not have access to a vehicle. That those neighborhoods are often also in areas that don't have access to public transit, to transportation, or they're not in a place where like they can just walk on the MKT and walk into downtown. So current transit riders in Columbia, 98% have a household income below $25,000. 24% identify as people of color, and 80% say they don't feel like they can participate in democracy. Which, I read that statistic and I was like, what? What does that even mean? When you really start to learn about, the government and like local elections and local officials, lots of the meetings are at town hall or city hall, whatever it's called, big keyhole. That's really hard to get to if you don't have a car. So like, how would you go to city council, or how would you go to other committee meetings or hearings on issues that you care about? You don't. A lot of those meetings are also held during the day. It's like the committee that decides all of our transportation issues meets at like 3:30 on a Wednesday. I go. I'm paid to go. But if you like actually want to go and tell people like, hey, I really like a bike lane where I live, or really like another bus stop, like you have to get off work, you have to figure out how to get downtown, and then you have to sit in a room and like wait for everyone to talk and get to the public comments and have your little public comment and then go home. So it's not a system that's built for everyone. Also, Vision Zero neighborhoods, folks are 2 times more likely to bike or walk than the rest of Columbia's average, which I love biking and walking to work, but those numbers aren't necessarily because people are choosing that because they want to, it's because they don't have another option. I've talked to some folks that, live like 2 miles from a bus stop, and so they'll be walking along Range Line to go get to their bus stop, wait for the bus, and then take another hour to maybe get to work. The bus routes right now are about 45 minutes long, like start to finish. They're going to be 90 minutes once they cut the routes more. It's like, I really can't not laugh, like it's just a joke. But Vision Zero neighborhoods, it's also, 20% of folks don't have a car, don't have access to a car. That's significantly higher than the rest of Columbia. So we have started to learn that there's really these patterns that the groups and neighborhoods that need access to public transit, to safe bike lanes, to sidewalks, trails, that's not where we build that infrastructure. There's a ton of businesses out on Route B. If you keep going down Paris, they're hiring all the time. There's no bus stops. There's no trail. Folks can't get out there to get a job. And that significantly impacts your life. Vision Zero neighborhoods and neighborhoods that don't have as much access to these transportation resources have lower health outcomes. They might not have a job or might not be able to get the job that they want because they don't have reliable transportation. Our buses only run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.-ish on weekdays. They don't run on Sundays, and they just run on like a half seas on Saturdays. So if you're in retail, those aren't hours that you can sign up for a job and actually get there. So all this is to say, I had never thought twice about not being able to get where I needed to go, let alone where I wanted to go, until I broke my leg. And then being at Local Motion really started to highlight that, that's also kind of best case scenario. I couldn't get where I needed to go for a year, but now I can. I can walk, I'm fine. I have a car, I have access to resources to get around town. I also live in a part of town that's super close to where I work, and we do have good trails and good sidewalks and good bike lanes. But that's not the case for a lot of people. Additionally though, if you think about bigger cities, transit is not just something that people take because they don't have a car and are low income. They take it because it works and it's faster. Because they'd rather sit on a bus or on a train and read their book or do their work and take 20 minutes to get to work and then go about their day rather than driving for an hour and being stuck in traffic. So I think we also don't think about transit as a fun and sexy option. And it is. It can really do a lot of cool stuff. But so can, the ability to have a protected bike lane and feel comfortable biking to get to your job or to go for, a grocery run or go to a friend's house. Those are all things that I definitely took for granted and that a lot of people don't have the resources for. So part of my work with Local Motion is really raising awareness for what we do as an organization. Like I said, my coworkers are the street nerds and design nerds and advocacy pros, and they're in the meetings with important people and doing a lot of stuff that I honestly still don't understand. But my job is connecting with people who might not know about us or might not realize that they could also benefit from a lot of these things that we want. Everyone could benefit from having more trails or having safer streets or better sidewalks or more bike lanes, because that also reduces car fatalities as well. Makes it safer for drivers, not just people who are biking or walking. So one of our, well, really our biggest event of the year is Bike Walking Wheel Week. And it's really an opportunity to bring folks together and tell them about what we do, and hopefully make you inclined to want to be more involved with us. But it's also just a chance to have some fun outside. And that is honestly why I like it, because it is this opportunity to get together with friends and community members and do different things outside around Columbia. So it is coming up May 14th to the 20th. There's an event every day. Lots of options for people. 3 of them are free, the other events are paid. And it really runs the gamut. We have Bikes and Brews, which is biking or walking around downtown. You get beer and food, and it's a good time. But we also have a Mother's Day ride out at Stevens. We have a hike along the Hinkson. So we're doing a lot of stuff with different organizations and different groups just to get people out and be active, learn a little bit more about our trail system, about transportation issues, and about locomotion. And it is legitimately pretty fun. And I say that as an introvert, so it is a good time. So that's my work plug. But it is coming up. We also do lots of stuff throughout the rest of the year too. So I'm always looking for other organizations to partner with that might be interested in the work that we're doing, or just other fun things to do that are engaging people around these topics. So definitely, if you think of something, let me know. But otherwise, thank you for listening to me talk. I think I'm supposed to ask if there are questions.
Yes, we have 15 minutes, so if
Yeah.
you have any questions, ask away.
Can be about anything. I might not know the answer, but yes.
When you go to the council meetings and you bring up these issues, what do they have to say? What are some of the crazy things you've heard, or good things, or I'm just curious what they have to say.
So, good question. We don't go to all the council meetings. City council has a very, very wide agenda. Recently, the biggest thing we've been working on is our Livable Streets campaign, which works to change how our street design is, change our street design for new streets, which I didn't know what that meant, but it's basically when we build new infrastructure, how are we building it? Are we building it with sidewalks? Are we building it with bike lanes? And how are we updating the old infrastructure? And it's a big policy that basically asks the city to spend the money a little bit differently. That still is up for discussion. A lot of city councilors really like it, but a lot of city staff are a little iffy. But that is one example. I think the biggest thing that we go to for transportation it's this group called CATSO, Columbia Area Transportation Study Organization. They are a committee. They meet quarterly, and they decide, it's MoDOT, city and county, thank you. And they make all the choices about how our transportation money is spent. So all those different groups have a transportation bucket and budget from state taxes, federal taxes, city taxes, maybe some other funding, I think mostly just taxes. And they decide let's build a new road and do it here, or let's update the sidewalks. So they actually make all of those choices. We always have someone at those committee meetings, and they're not great. I've definitely been to some meetings that they kind of just have a like whatever attitude towards folks. It's not, I don't have a lot of nice things to say about them. But we always have someone there. And it's not always a like hopeless situation. They are actually working on creating a like guideline, rating system on how they should spend transportation dollars. So previously it's just been like whatever the 10 dudes want to do. And now they're creating this like spectrum sheet of like how should we prioritize spending dollars, and that's something that we like kind of push them to do. And that like is legitimately happening, so that's a good thing.
I also have a question about the bus.
Yes.
They're cutting the routes.
Yes.
Is that strictly for financial reasons?
Yes. So I'm not the bus person, but my understanding is City of Columbia pays their bus drivers less than the school system or other like private busing companies that will bus like university students. So what will happen is if you want to be a bus driver, you'll go to the City of Columbia. They'll pay for you to get your license to be a bus driver. They will hire you and pay you, I think it's like $15 an hour right now. I don't know. Again, not the bus person. But you can make like several dollars more with other organizations. So people will get their license for free, work for the city, and then leave and go to the other private groups, which like great, I would too. And then the city gets short on drivers. So it's a driver shortage issue as well as a like it's kind of chicken or the egg. Like, well, people aren't riding the bus, and it's like, well, because there's literally no stops and they can't get to work and they can't do the things. So yeah, they're not going to ride the bus, but then that's used as justification for like why we should fund the bus system too. But in the more immediate, like now, I know it is a pay issue that the city is paying significantly less than other groups, and that the city is definitely aware of that.
How much does local motion get into the tax abatement that's given out to like the Cronky Group and to Swift Foods that came in and equipment shared as we bring on more people? And you look at the graph, it's real simple. Maintenance budget is flat. Miles is up. And so it's like you've given all those tax dollars away to these corporations. We brought more people in. We need more, more maintenance of the existing infrastructure. You mentioned new roads, but I saw a guy in a wheelchair going down the street because the sidewalk sucks.
Yes.
Just down here on 8th Street.
And that is, so getting into like, groups and corporations coming in, we won't really get involved in that, but the repercussions of like maintenance, that's like what CATSO does. So they're the ones saying like, we don't care if someone can't get down the sidewalk in their wheelchair, we want to build Discovery Parkway because that's going to bring in bigger businesses and bigger corporations. So Discovery Parkway was like a $10 million project. You could redo all of the sidewalks in all of downtown for like $6 to $8 million. So it is intentional. They're choosing to spend their money elsewhere. In terms of legislative stuff, I think to answer your question, we try to only be involved in like what's happening on streets, roads, sidewalks, and not necessarily as much of like, I don't know, the other players involved.
So CATSO gets involved, the legislative side? Is that?
CATSO is the legislative side.
What is that?
Yeah, so they are a coordinating committee, and it's made up of not elected officials. There's 2 on there. One is the, what's KIP?
Presiding Commission.
Thank you, yeah. So like Kip Kendrick, like he is elected and he has a seat on that. But there's only 2 people that are elected officials. Everyone else is appointed from MoDOT, the city, or the county. The city makes up like a bulk of the funding, But there's no rubric system on how they spend the money. It is legitimately them going through slides in a meeting and saying like, well, let's fund this. Like, I'm not kidding. So they legitimately are the ones making the choices on how the money is spent. They're wildly boring meetings. The press doesn't want to cover it, which like I wouldn't either. And there's literally times that there will just be like our CEO sitting in the room just like, hey guys. So this is, I think, one of those things that like really got me fired up is like people just don't know. And it's not their fault, but it's just like this isn't built to be understandable. It's not built to be easy. So yes, they make all those choices.
I think that one graph's pretty understandable. Road miles go up and our dollars of maintenance don't.
Yeah.
That's a real easy problem to figure out.
Sorry, I don't have a more fun answer.
Has there been any thought to other modes of transporting people besides, say, the buses?
Like a train?
Well, a train may not necessarily be the answer because that'd be limited, but just anything else. I don't have any suggestions, but trying to think outside the normal or outside the box, to quote an old phrase.
I know that there was some discussion within the last few years of getting a bike share program going. That was very close to happening, and then I think some of the like major players pulled out of that. Otherwise, no. I think most of the focus is on buses or sidewalks or creating like better bike infrastructure.
Totally different question.
Yes.
But back when you were talking about how you used to punish yourself
Yes.
to move, did you ever look back or figure out that maybe that was a framing issue from yourself and not always accurate? So did you change how you were speaking to yourself?
I'm still in therapy to do that. No, yes. I mean, I think I like grew up with the like conditioning to believe that my body needed to like look a certain way and do a certain thing, and so a lot of like my ability to not punish myself has been by trying to like change that way of thinking. But I'm 29 and I broke my leg when I was 26, and that's like a lot of years to undo. And we like still live in a world that has a lot of opinions on our bodies and what they should or shouldn't do, and yeah, how we should move them. So I don't know if that answers your question. Okay. Anyone else?
When you were getting back into movement and entering CT, did it feel like a homecoming to have that movement again? Or was there apprehension, resistance? What did that process look like?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I expected it to be what it used to be. And I think I was really frustrated at first because like I couldn't walk. And so my PT was like, how do you walk? And I was like, can we do like fun things? Like, can I like work out? So yeah, I think it for a while felt like everything feels so hard. Why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to do things that I could do like without thinking about? And yeah, I mean, I did 7 months of PT, and I think really the last 2 months, I only started feeling like, okay, this feels familiar again. But I do think a lot of it was I was scared or I was frustrated or disappointed for a long time.
I was just kind of stemming off that too, just thinking about the work mentally that you'd have to do to just get back on that trail, and not like if you see a dog when you're biking, do you get like tense?
Yes. Yeah, for a while I only rode with people, and that was fine, but I also really like riding alone. And I just kind of did it. It was like a Band-Aid situation. And sometimes I'd still get like kind of panicked, but most of the time it's fine. And I will see dogs, and it doesn't matter if they're on a leash or not. Like, I definitely avoid them. But it's definitely like manageable.
Have you, or do you have plans to ride 100 miles in a day?
I thought someone was gonna ask that. The longest I've ridden since I crashed was 62 miles. That was last year. I would like to ride 100 miles, like I still have not. But I haven't made the commitment yet. It would not be alone. I think lots of people would have problems with me doing that. My mother. But it's definitely on my radar, but I haven't like committed.
One more question, probably, unless you wanted to keep going.
No, go for it.
Oh, did you have one?
No, saying you
Oh,
have time
okay.
for one more.
So did you know the dog? No, I'm just kidding. I'm curious, so did you start at Locomotion after your accident?
Yes.
Was that career transition, was that kind of intentional where you're like, okay, I need to find something to like?
I had been doing more marketing work, which I like and is still a huge part of my job. Like, this is marketing. But I wanted to do something that I cared about, and I was working for a software company doing a lot of their marketing and content stuff, which is fine, and I like doing that work, but I wanted to try doing work that like felt a little bit more personal. So it just kind of happened at the right time.
Yeah.
And honestly too, like I wasn't at a point where I would have been able to like ride my bike to work or be as active as I am for this job. So it kind of needed like that time of doing work that wasn't this for my body to like be this active again.
Well, we appreciate you for coming.
Thank you. Oh, there are also some very cute stickers by the donut.